Hello everyone, I'm Xiao Gang. Okay, in this lesson we will officially start writing our slate. We know the course doesn't cover slate, but since it's used here, I'll briefly mention it. I'll see if there's a chance later to list the slate documentation for you separately, because it's very simple. This document is clearly newly added. Why is it newly added? Because this thing is from Lyra, which only exists in UE5. There was no such document before, I believe. Okay, so here is the slate document. So what is slate? Did you know that the underlying layer of our UMG is slate? And it has a simple declarative syntax. You can see, for example, here we declare a slate. This is a bit jumpy, but bear with me. So if you're a slate, you must inherit a class from Scattle. Then this slate has a begin and an end. Then here you can pass some parameters. So what are these parameters used for? For example, this is a fixed syntax, ATA. This is the simplest one. We'll write it later. Look here, it passes to a U class. Also passes a playtime. Obviously, this playtime is a floating point type. It is passed through this red defines such a variable, a parameter, after defining this thing. Look, there is also a playtime here. You can see. So these two things can be used in this constructor through this parameter in this way of adding an underscore to pass this parameter to pass this parameter in for use. Actually, the way it is used here, we can search for it. So, these two red worlds are obviously bound to this selection delegate. You can see, look, when it's a 6, you can pass some data in. See here, then, if you look at this document, it contains some standard writing convention. It's basically like, then within Slate, how does it perform chain programming on this element, right? Then the content here is a bit more complex. So you just need to know roughly that Slate bias, 投影. Then let's talk about why Slate is so complex. Actually, Slate itself is quite easy to write. It fits the classic programmer's aesthetic very well because it is chain programming. That is, after you call a function, it will return a reference to this object. You can keep adding points as you go further back. So it's a classic chain programming style, and writing UI here itself is very powerful and convenient. The tricky part is that once it's tied to the engine, and then tied to these delegates, and also to these object classes, once it's all tied together with object classes and smart pointers, after it's wrapped too many layers, it becomes extremely complex, because if you're not very clear about it, the readability of this slate is basically very poor. And you can see there are many smart pointers here. Look, this slate is wrapped inside another slate, and so on. So actually the main thing is to talk about slate. Actually, you can think of it as, how should I put it? You just need to relate it to UMG when explaining. And for slate, first, think about UMG. First, it has a kind of canvas, right? This kind of canvas, you can see. This canvas inherits from canvas. Canvas is a panel. Canvas is a panel. Canvas is a panel. We mainly look at this canvas, which is a panel class. Look, let's look at it. It inherits from the panel, and it is a layout, a kind of canvas. Then you can add various participating widgets at any position here. So this S panel inherits from SWidget, and this is essentially a container, right? This kind can hold arbitrary objects. We won't look at XLet. So next, let's look at this one can hold many objects, and then we can actually put this kind, that is, we can put this kind of horizontal box. This kind can also hold objects inside. We can look at this horizontal box. You see, it also inherits from panel. That is, they can hold multiple objects. Actually, there is another type of node, for example, like this button. The most classic one should be this border. This border can only hold one object. It can place a child object, you will find. We place a text child object, then you will find. Then you won't be able to place it here because it is only single slot to widget. Why is it single slot to widget? We open this border, then we look at its underlying layer. We won't look at this ULIT because this slate is really too difficult to use. So they specifically created UMG. It inherits from SCompoundWidget. Obviously, this time SCompoundWidget, it can only have one, and at the same time, is this size float. That's it. So if you want to add something in here, it actually adds this tag to the size slope, and this tags does not have this. It does not have the ability to nest anything further underneath. So actually we can see that at the bottom level, this smart pointer, okay, should be high RTC-RPT. Then you will see that it is, as you can see, let's look here. It inherits from border. This border also inherits from A. Let's take a look. This should also be nestable. As you can see, this one doesn't work. Let me check this one. Click the wrong thing. Don't look at this text. It might be a bit misleading. Then let's just look at this. Look at this image. This UEC sets underlying layer. What is it? It is this and then the configuration layer. S1. You continue. Snap. G. Then it essentially cannot have this slot. And you roughly understand. This slot has these several differences. We can't go into too much detail. Okay, so actually you roughly understand this slot. You just roughly know that's how it is. And here are some documents. We'll go over them when we have time. Okay, here, when it declares, it constructs these standalone call events or parameters and content to display. So, because this slate is quite special, if you have this property variable you want to use, you must use it here. Then how do you perform this iteration? Actually, it is just nested layer by layer, just like when you write a widget. How do we usually write Slate? Because we write this widget first. Obviously, these two are at the same level. So here, its canals have two objects, and this object also has an object under it. This object also has an object. So the structure is like this. We understand this layer as A, B, C, D. So A, B. You should understand what I mean. Then for example, we add another one here. Water like water layer 3. So obviously it's A. That B, right? Then we add an order layer here. And this part is C, right? It says it's a chain-like programming. This is an iterative concept. And here you can adjust these parameters. These parameters can be adjusted. After you create the subject, you can directly adjust these parameters here. Okay, the one we use most often is this S6. This way, you can create a vcate. But actually there's another version. Let me check that place. Is it here? You can see the main S6 here. Actually, there is another one in our code. We can search for SSS, assign, let's see, cancel it. We should search again. It should be assign new. Found it. So the advantage of this one is it can return a smart pointer object. Actually, we will use both of them. You can see here, this source code assistant is great, right? You see, S6 is like this. But for S6, it can pass the smart pointer in. It means after you finish it, this smart pointer is stored here. So you can construct it using these two methods. Either way is perfectly fine. And here is a simple, again, it contains such an attribute variable. You can use it later. Yes. Then, this thing here, you can just search for S6 directly. Some sample code is provided here. Obviously, there is a button here. With this button, you can see, when constructing this button here, it should actually, it will bind this event to the button's click. Then it activates. Okay, we won't look at this part. It's actually quite complicated here. Alright. We'll briefly give everyone a brief overview of this Slate. And now we'll guide you through writing it. Okay, before we start writing, let me first show you how we need to lay this out. Right, let's launch it first. Okay. So here you need to use a UMG to piece together this layout. So here, what does this layout look like? You can see this is our entire modify lamp button. And this is clearly a horizontal box, and this is also a horizontal box. On the far left of the horizontal box is a number box for the waiter, and over here is also a number box for the waiter. We'll piece together some logs here, something like that. Okay, then let's first take a look at the code. Then I'll guide everyone to write it. You can, in this place, we first created a number box. This place also created a number box. Then this code, this number box is this whole one is our modify box. and this is this. This next one is a Horrocks number box. Then the first element of this number box is the second element of the number box, right? Then in the second element, we create a horizontal box. On the left side, this is this button. Open the specified folder. On the right is a text. Display our current folder. Then this first one. This box is done. Then, as for this second box, it is this box. This box, obviously, we made another horizontal box. Split it into left and right. Then on the left side, we made another vertical box. Then divided it into these columns, put a few buttons and text. Then as for the other box, it is actually the box on the right. It's mainly an element that displays some text. Okay, so it's actually quite simple. This modify them, okay? Alright? Then let's use this thing to explain to everyone. We create a new widget. Or maybe we should first use this. It's very simple. We put a canvas here. This is our canvas. Then for this canvas, we first create a wackless box. And the wackless box, we first flatten it out. It seems there isn't one here. We can simply drag it like this. So this is what it is. Let's change this to desert. Let's take a look. Or we can specify this. It doesn't matter. And here, we need two horizontal boxes. Let me explain again. So these two, this box should be like this. Like this one, two. And this is on the same level as that. As for the elements in the first horizontal box, obviously there are two buttons. Let me show you. Okay, here is a button. This button corresponds to that button. It's just that we haven't filled it completely here. Right. Then the second part is a txt. We'll make it display this thing. Okay. Next, let's talk about the second horizontal box. The second horizontal box actually has two elements, right? So these two elements. The first one is this number box. Okay, this box is placed on the far left. You can't see it. Then we put a few buttons in it. Now you can see them. Let's place it. Let's put it in again. Okay, this place corresponds to. Actually corresponds to this position, and there is an element on its right. Here we should have used txt. It should be this level. You see, this hierarchy is now clear, right? This place corresponds to here. Open a specified folder. Here you can input some text and parameters, and this place is where we display some logs. This place corresponds to the path we display. Actually, our UMG corresponds to. That's how the UMG version is, and you can definitely do it within the project. Write a UMG, then you write this graph here. For example, when you click this button, then it triggers a certain event. These can all be done within the project. It's just that we moved it to a standalone program. It might look more advanced and complex, but essentially, it's the same thing. Okay, then we can close this. Alright, so we'll stop here for this lesson. Next, we will guide you to write a very simple modify line box.